one thing that I've learned that has been really helpful is the whole radical acceptance thing. So, for example, when I was warned when I was starting therapy that it was going to be quite tough. And a couple of things. So I've never seen it as a fight. I've never said that I'm fighting depression. It's always been I'm being treated for depression. Because I think when you have the mentality of a fight, you instantly set yourself up for feeling exhausted, because fighting is exhausting. So it's very much actually now I'm being treated for it, and that really helps, or it certainly helped me. And it's just that word. It's just drumming in that word rather than the fight has helped. So that's one thing. And the other is that kind of acceptance of this is going to take a long time. This does take years, particularly when. So I'm being treated for two things. One is a mood disorder, and the other is depression. So they're two very, very different things that affect different parts of the brain. Obviously, the mood and emotional disorder I've had since birth, we think, whereas depression is probably, I don't know, around 2017, 2018, I think I first started noticing it. So yeah, there's two different things going on there, and it's accepting that it's going to be a long journey, but sitting with that. So rather than, because obviously the thing is I just want to get to the end and it to be cured, but that can't happen. So it's like, okay, what I'm going to do, I've made some big changes. I've made my environment more comfortable. You know, I've done things like wallpapering, and I've made the garden nice. But most importantly, I've enjoyed the process. So it's not about getting to the end result, okay? It's actually thinking, no, it doesn't all have to be perfect. I don't have to live in this perfect place. I just will do one thing at a time. You know, I will paint the floor, and I'll put the wallpaper up, and maybe I'll do some adjustment, change the lighting bit by bit. And it's taken the best part of a year to do that. And that's a bit like the being treated for depression as well. It takes quite a long time. And another thing that I've done, which, so also it just so happened that I had massive problems with my vocal cords as well. And that was another thing I was really worried about. It caused me huge self-confidence issues because I couldn't speak. I could usually only talk for 10 minutes at a time, and then it became really painful, and it was just like, oh God, there's nothing to worry about. So again, that's been happening. So I've tackled them all, but I'm just doing them a stage at a time. And when I do one bit, so when I'm doing the therapy for the emotional dysregulation, I just focus on that. That's the thing I do at that time. Okay, I don't worry about the rest of it. And then I will do the vocal strengthening therapy, and then I'll just focus on that. And I just sort of break it up into bits at a time, so I don't become overwhelmed, because I was overwhelmed with all these worries. I was like, oh my God. So I've got depression, I'm not in control of my moods. I was pretty convinced I had bipolar disorder, so that was a given. I was like, I'm going to have to get diagnosed with this, and then what the hell am I going to do? I've got massive emotional problems. I'm a guy who seems to have emotions like most guys. Other guys don't seem to. I'm very effeminate. That was a huge worry of mine. I'm like, oh my God, what am I, like one of these people who have got gender dysphoria? No, I haven't. That's fine. That's just who I am. I just have quite an effeminate personality, which is absolutely cool. Obviously worried about the vocal cords and all those issues and everything. So I was like, shit, how the bloody hell am I going to deal with all of this? And I thought, okay, I will deal with it all, but I will just tackle it each bit at a time. And obviously with help. And if you are on a waiting list, then, accept that this is part of the journey. But the waiting list is part of it. But the fact is that you're on that waiting list is a step. That is a big step into now it's happening, now it's moving. And there are things you can do as well. There are lots of books you can get online. There's a DBT skills and training book. And if you get that, it is £25, but it is £25 worth spending. And if you go through that for 10 minutes a day, that will give you a massive head start as well. And this is good for, you don't just have to have like bipolar disorder or an emotional dysregulation to benefit from those as well. It can help with all sorts of depression. So, and it just great life skills as well, you know, that kind of whole accepting things and viewing things in different ways, and training that you can do with your brain that just helps the structure of your brain and helps you think differently. Now, I'll always have a mood disorder, I can't change that, that's always going to be the case. It's incurable, but I can make it more manageable. Another thing is I started learning to play the guitar, and this was an escapism, because I knew that I was going to be doing all this stuff and all this therapy and everything. So I was like, right, okay, I'll do something that kind of takes me away from it. So I do this for like 15 minutes every day, and someone comes over and teaches me as well once a week. So it's just kind of that escapism. It's because obviously the managing a mood disorder is exhausting. It takes a lot of your energy and a lot of your time. It's very frustrating, but this gives me a little bit of time. Obviously I run 3 businesses as well, so you can still function really well. You can do a lot. I mean, if you do follow me on whatever social media, I'm rubbish at social media, but if you do happen to follow me on wherever it is, you'll see that I run a lot of productions. I'm making a film at the moment, and all of this can happen while you're still struggling with depression or having a mood disorder. There's lots of things around high functioning depression, and it's just like, well, carrying on but accepting you're still suffering with depression, and tackling that whilst you're doing it, but not just kind of like caving in and giving up, but allow yourself time as well. So if you need to take a day to be like, okay, I need to not do stuff today, I need to look after myself, then obviously accepting that that's reality, because that acceptance of, you know, when you are being treated for depression, it's not a constant uphill thing. It's you're gonna crash, you're gonna fall, and it's accepting that as well. So when I do crash, I kind of make sure I tell myself that this is just part of the journey, and even though it's painful, kind of accept that well, that's just a reality that's going to happen. And when I do, I treat it very much as like having a cold or having the flu. So I will like wrap myself in a duvet, I will look after myself, I will allow myself time to sleep, and all these kind of things, and it does make a big difference. So that's all worth knowing. A quick note as well, which is probably worth doing, I hate talking about this because it is a very difficult subject and a lot of people don't know how to deal with it, but it's self-harm. I was classed as a self-harmer mostly because of being classed as a high suicide risk, and that's classed as self-harm. But I did have a little bit of a self-harm issue very recently, and I never understood self-harm until recently, actually. It's like I'd never really done before. I was always fascinated. I was like, well, why do people do it? Is it because I thought, I think like a lot of people, they just, you know, oh, it must be like a cry for help or something. But then I thought, well, no, because people seem to do it on bits of the body that isn't exposed and they kind of cover it up. So I was like, that's quite fascinating. I kind of understand it now. So basically, I can deal with emotional pain a lot better than I can deal with physical pain a lot better than I can deal with emotional pain. Emotional pain, I just can't cope with. It becomes too overwhelming. And whereas physical pain, although it's very, very hard to tolerate, it's just about manageable. So there are things, it takes away. It's like when you have a really bad stomach ache, you know, when you're like crouched over and it is so unbearable that you literally cannot think, yeah? That's kind of what it is. It takes that emotional pain away. So the things to do if you are somebody who self-harms or worries about self-harming, there are things you can do. One of them is holding ice cubes is supposed to be quite good. And there's obviously these tip skills. So putting your wrists in very, very cold water. I'm talking about ice cold water, and it will be painful. It'll be very, very uncomfortable and it will be painful. But obviously that is the point. it can't be soft and nice, otherwise it's not going to work, because, you know, the thing is, it's safer than other ways of self-harming. It's not going to do you lasting damage. There's obviously cold showers as well. But yeah, if you put anywhere where you check the pulse, so wrists up here, things like that, you can splash water in your face over and over again as well. Again, it's really unpleasant. It's not nice. It has to be ice cold. But it will, if you're in a crisis and completely overwhelmed and feeling like you're going to do something and self-harm, then that will just get you out of that emergency situation. It won't solve things long term, but it will get you out of that emergency. You have to treat it as an emergency and just deal with that at the moment, okay? I didn't find the ice cubes thing worked terribly well. And there is something that kind of worked better. I'm not sure. I wouldn't recommend it though, because I don't know about the health implications. But for me, it was holding stinging nettles. It sounds crazy. I mean, I used to be in tears on the floor thinking, I can't believe that I'm doing that. This is nuts. I used to feel like an absolute mental case. But, it was so, I can't describe the pain. Just shooting through my hands. I would feel sick. I'd have tears in my eyes. I'd be honestly horrendous. But it would, for that moment, it would just relieve me of the emotional pain. And it was kind of needed. So I don't recommend that, because I genuinely don't know of the risks involving stinging nettles. I would recommend the ice thing or the cold water, obviously. And most importantly, do speak to your doctor if you are somebody who's having thoughts of self-harm, because it can be obviously very, very dangerous and cause long-term problems. But all in all, yes, it's just sitting with it, giving yourself things to take your mind away from it, and giving that time. When you're dealing with and trying to fix the problems, accepting that it is a journey and it will take time, but having something like this to take yourself away from it as well. So I don't know. Yeah, I hope those help. There's just some things that I've learned that have really helped me, and they might help you, particularly if you're on a waiting list. If you're not on a waiting list and you're worried about mental health, it's a huge problem at the moment. Mental health is incredibly diverse, really diverse. So very specific, tailored therapy is really important, and that unfortunately takes a long time. But you can get yourself on a waiting list. You need to speak to your GP first and insist that you need to go on a waiting list. It's going to take some time, but there's lots that you can do whilst you're on that waiting list to give you a head start. And as I say, that DBT book is very, very beneficial, and it's worth doing regardless of what you have. So regardless of what you're suffering, it might be, addiction, it might be self-harm, it might be suicidal thoughts, it could be, high emotions, it could be that you're getting in trouble, getting very, very angry, or getting very, very upset. I don't like to ever mention gender, because I'm really against, gendering anything. But obviously, if you're male, there is still a big stigma with men who have an emotional disorder, unfortunately. EUPD, which is something I was diagnosed with, it is incredibly rare in men. So that's just to be acknowledged. It can make it feel a little bit more difficult, but don't let that intimidate you. Don't be put off by that, okay? It's just one of those things. And there's nothing wrong with just going out and just accepting that. You can be a complete sort of alpha male and still potentially have it. You don't have to be like me. Those two don't have to go together. That's hopefully your journey will happen. It will be challenging, but it's the right thing. There's no harm if you are going through mental health problems now. There is nothing to lose in getting on the waiting list and starting to make those steps. Because if you don't take action, you have to accept that things probably won't change. They'll just stay like they are. But if you do take action, things will start to change. And it's those little bits that then move on to the next bits and the next bits, and then I'm significantly further along than I was 2 years ago. I mean, massively. I didn't think I was going to survive this. I mean, there's letters in my wardrobe. They're still there, but there was letters written to my family and my close friends trying to explain to them why I'd taken my life. That's how bad it had got. I tied up all the loose ends. I'd sort my finances out. I'd even written some plans down that I wanted for like after I'd left this earth. So I thought this was it. I thought this was a death sentence for me because I couldn't cope with the way that I felt anymore. I just snapped, and this, I wasn't leaving the house because I was so ashamed just who I was and how I felt, and like, having these emotions. I just felt such shame and embarrassment about it. And now I'm much more accepting of myself. I'm so happier. I'm just, I've made a few changes about my environment and about myself, and just been at peace with who I am, and it's made a massive difference, and I'm a lot happier and a lot more at peace. Still struggling. I'm not going to pretend I'm not struggling. It's still a massive struggle and in a lot of pain, but I am probably the happiest I've been in a very long time. So it's definitely worth doing, and keep with it. And as I say, if you need any support, you can message me. I take a long time to reply because I'm very busy. But I am sort of open. My new rule to myself, my promise to myself, is that I will always put mental health in front of everything else. Absolutely everything. So I will drop everything that I'm doing if there is a mental health crisis with somebody. And it's the most important thing. There's nothing more important than mental health, because if you think about it, our brains control everything. Everything. So how we look after ourselves, our actions, what we do, getting our kids to school, getting ourselves to work, looking after the house, even decisions about going to war. These are all made inside here, yeah? Everything that happens, right, happens from inside here, yeah? Think about the Ukraine war. That's come from somebody's head, yeah? Climate change, and whether we're going to do something about it or not do something about it, comes from somebody's head. It's a decision. And that's why mental health is so important. It pays our bills, it keeps everybody safe. As I say, it gets our children to school, it's our health in check. So it is, without any question, the most important thing in everybody's life, whether you are an office worker or the Prime Minister. It is absolutely has to be the number one priority in everything, if you really step out the box and really think about the implications of it. Okay, so so I hope this helps, and there will be times now and again where I will try and share some stuff, and don't worry, I'm not going to start singing or playing the guitar, because that would be going a little bit too far. So stay safe, everyone, and speak to you soon.